Hello, it's Theo from Theo's Tech Tips, and in this video I'm going to be showing you how to use DaVinci Resolve. Let's get started. So DaVinci Resolve is a free video editor that is also a professional tool. It is often used for color correction, and it's just an all-around video editor. So I recently switched to DaVinci Resolve from iMovie because DaVinci Resolve is a lot more advanced, and iMovie lacked some of the features that I really needed to do my video editing with. And I would definitely recommend it because of its simple, easy to use design. So let's take a look at how to use it. We need to open up DaVinci Resolve. And the way that DaVinci Resolve manages projects is kind of like iMovie. So you have your different databases here where these are your libraries. In iMovie, you'd have different libraries for like all your different types of projects and stuff. And DaVinci Resolve does like the exact same thing, except it just stores it a little differently. So you can have like different libraries for different projects. So I have one for my personal videos and then one for my YouTube videos. Let's make a new project. So most simple video editors will manage your clips by having you like drag it into your media pool and then drag it into your timeline, and then you have your preview over here. That's how iMovie does it. But DaVinci Resolve manages stuff with tabs. So you have your media tab, you have your cut tab, you have your edit tab, you have your fusion tab, you have your color tab, you have your Fairlight tab for audio stuff, and then you have your deploy tab, which will make your final export. So let's start by going to the media tab and importing the clips that we want to use. So I'm going to use some footage from a couple of videos ago, and we could just import it into our media pool by dragging it in. So once you have your footage, you could just take it like this, drag it right in to where it says media pool right here. And then it's going to pop it up, change project frame rate if it's a new project, because your project isn't configured yet to use the frame rate of the footage you're trying to import. So you want to press change to change your timeline frame rate, and then we can just import the rest of our footage without any problems. So now I'm going to go over the different tabs that we have. So the cut tab is what I like to refer to as the iMovie tab, because iMovie has something called the magnetic timeline, which basically snaps all your clips together when you delete something and will snap out when you want to add a new clip in. And the cut tab does have snapping that you can turn on. So this is where you would just like import your footage in here, and then you would just do some basic cuts. I don't really use this that often. I prefer to go into another tab to just do all the editing, which is actually the next tab. So the next tab is the edit tab, and this is where you're going to spend most of your time, because this is where you have your different tracks. So we could drag our footage onto the edit tab, and as you can see, it creates two different tracks. It creates a video track over here and an audio track over here. And the audio and video tracks are organized separately. This section holds your audio tracks, and then this section holds your video tracks. So the thing with DaVinci Resolve, and actually every video editor that is super handy, is keyboard shortcuts, and you're really going to want a lot of them. So I actually went into keyboard customization to set these. So because I'm coming from iMovie, which like I said has the magnetic timeline and it snaps all your clips together, this doesn't have that. So when I cut and then delete, it leaves a gap, and I really don't like that. So I really wanted it to snap back together, so I made a keyboard shortcut that will delete the gaps for me, which is Command D, and that will delete the gaps. So I can slice these parts of the video and then go Command D to snap them back together. And this works really well because
Theo from Theo's Tech Tips,
and this is actually better than the magnetic timeline, because sometimes the magnetic timeline can get a bit annoying. This you can choose when you want to snap it, like, because the magnetic timeline won't let you have any gaps at all in your timeline. So like I can do this. I can't do that with a magnetic timeline. So of course we can add more tracks. So in a typical video about 4 seconds in, I will add a subscribe notification, so I can drag that on as a separate track. And it will overlay the video. So what I really love about DaVinci Resolve is that transforming tracks to like make them picture-in-picture and stuff is so much easier, and it's so much nicer than in iMovie. So you can just click this transform button, and then you have these little markers. So I can make a little picture-in-picture box, and it's super easy and fast. And yeah, you can just drag it around, create trackers and stuff, change the pivot point, and it's so much more advanced than iMovie. You can even rotate it too. So that's pretty cool. So in a normal Theo's Tech Tips video, this is going to be transparent, and as you can see, it has a green background because it is a green screen. So I will go over green screen next. It takes some getting used to, but once you're used to it, it's almost natural. So what's next is we are going to go to that green screen and figure out how to chroma key it out. And this is something that you'll be using often when you're video editing. So to do that, there are actually many ways of doing that, but I like to go into the Fusion tab. This is basically like the effects that go in between your footage start and your footage end. So if I had, these are like your filters. So I would want a green screen. I would have a filter right in the middle that would tell it to remove all green to make it transparent, basically. So then it would just have this on your media out. So in order to add an effect, you can press Shift Space and it'll bring up your tools. And the one that I'm going to use for the green screen, there's so many tools you can use for different chroma keys that you want to do, which is a lot more powerful than iMovie because iMovie only really has one option. But the one I like to use is Delta Keyer. So we can choose Delta Keyer and add it. And then what we're going to do is we're going to attach it to our footage. So we're going to drag the arrows and connect it to our footage. So then we have our Delta Keyer over here, and these are the options for our Delta Keyer. So the background color, it wants to know what it is. So it's super easy. You could just click on it to choose the color, or even better, click on the eyedropper and then choose your green so it matches the perfect color. And there we go. If we go back to our edit tab,
and
it's
in
now
this video,
transparent.
I'm going to be showing you how to.
So that's awesome. Yeah, so that's basically your Fusion tab. So the next tab we're going to cover is the coloring tab. So this is really why professionals choose DaVinci Resolve, because it is so good at color grading and has so many options. But for beginners, you don't really need all of that. So it's very easy to get lost. So in the color grading tab, you have your footage up here that you want to color grade. I'm just gonna grade my footage over here. So this is my main footage. So then I would use the adjustments down here, which is really all you need if you're not a professional. So color boost, you could do that. It has negatives. You could double click it to enter a value as well. So 0 will change it back to 0. You could change the shadows. You can change the highlights. You can choose the saturation of the whole clip, and if you go down, it turns it into black and white. So this is how you'd make your footage black and white, is bringing the saturation all the way down. And you have your hue, which will adjust what colors are showing. So I can totally mess around with the footage here. And yeah, so these are just the options you use for color. So for Fairlight, which is the next tab, this is where it gets pretty interesting. We basically have our audio tracks from our timeline here, which is exactly how it shows on the edit page too. These are audio tracks, and in Fairlight, it just shows audio tracks. So in Fairlight is where we do everything audio. So we can right click on our audio that we want to do. The left and right channels are split up, so we have L and R. We could do on both channels, analyze audio levels. And this is what we got. It gave us our true peak and our loudness. So we could close that. And yeah, so you could like analyze it. And another thing it'll give you is normalize, which will adjust the audio levels so it's a desirable amount and all of it's pretty consistent. So yeah, there are so many options in the Fairlight tab, like echo reduction and stuff. But that stuff you don't really need to know for basic edits. And then to finish off, we have our last tab, which is deploy. So deploy is where you'd watch over your completed video.
Hello, it's Theo from Theo's Tech Tips, and in this video, I'm going to be showing you how to.
Yeah, So you can watch it over, and then when you decide it's good, you can export it. So this is where you can export it, and you can tell it's a professional tool because there are so many options. You can export it to Final Cut, you can export it to Premiere, you can export it as audio only, you can export it as YouTube 1080p. So I just leave it as normal. And then all the stuff like resolution 1080p, you could just change that. Format QuickTime, I just leave that. So then to export, like how you do an iMovie, you would press add to render queue, and then you would choose the path of where it is. So I'll just put it on my SSD, and then I could just render all. And it's basically exporting everything, but I'm not gonna wait for that. So yeah, that's basically how to use DaVinci Resolve for beginners. You can let me know in the comments if you want to see a follow-up video to this. But that's it for now. I'm Theo from Theo's Tech Tips, and I'll see you next time. Bye!